Ian, once a year we go over the Video Game Hall of Fame finalists, buddy.
We do.
It's Girl Scout cookies in the spring and Video Game Hall of Fame.
Yep. So these were announced just last week. Wanted to go over them. So some big ones, some returners,
big ones,
some big potential choices this year, some returning choices from previous years, and one that I am particularly excited to see on the list. We'll go through them. So Assassin's Creed is on this year. That's one of the first ones that honestly I don't really understand.
Did you mention this is a Museum of Play?
Oh, Museum of Play, the Strong Museum.
Okay.
Yeah, they do it every year.
Yeah, because obviously they have toys, they have video games,
Yep.
They have a bunch of stuff.
I've been there. The actual location is the whole museum is awesome. It's in Rochester.
Yeah, which wasn't in Rochester. It's the only thing. I know that Rochester's a nice area, but there's no reason for me to ever be in Rochester.
Get a garbage plate, go to the museum.
That's the weekend.
You can do it you can actually do all of that in the museum.
Really? They have
a Bill Gray's located in the museum.
Bill Gray's, that's it.
Bill Gray's is one of the famous places for garbage plates. So Assassin's Creed, this is going to be the one that I'm going to say right off the bat. I just don't get. I know it's a popular series, but it seems to be popular simply for the sake of its perseverance in getting a release every
20 freaking games
year till the end of time. And I mean, I know it's never been a series. I know people like it, but
they got a movie.
I guess I don't understand necessarily what makes this stand out or important.
Did it popularize like historical action games like that? Maybe. Is
right.
That why?
So they said it debuted in 2007 as a sequel to the popular Prince of Persia franchise, but quickly stood on its own. The open world I mean, it is one of the earlier, more successful open world games.
Yeah, I guess this could make it like down the road.
Sure.
Like, you know what I mean? That's fine.
Candy Crush Saga, get it. Haven't played it, but I understand it. I mean,
you're telling people get it, or you get it?
I get it. I get
finalist.
Yeah, I get why it's a finalist. I wasn't a bus ride or a train ride that I would take to work where I wouldn't sit down and notice or hear someone playing.
It's one of the first big smartphone games.
Yep,
if not
Candy
the first
Crush.
big one. Like, I mean, how many hundreds? Okay, sorry, 3 billion downloads.
Popularized the free-to-play model.
Was that a 3 thing?
I think similar to that. Yeah, kind of. I never really played Candy Crush.
A match 3? That's what they call it. Tile matching.
Dance Dance Revolution, absolutely, I understand it. I don't know if it'll get in this time. I mean, the game, it was one of the first incredibly popular music games. It was one of the first games that I remember, people watching for announcements of it coming over to the US. It took over, arcades for years.
I would definitely put this in for no other reason that this will be the only game guaranteed to probably always have like an arcade release. Like this will always be like the staple.
Sure.
They always do the upgrade. You know what I mean? Like you're almost always going to see a DDR machine in an arcade, or even at a Dave and Buster's. Until the end of time. Like there's something to that.
And it's funny to me because I remember we used to travel to play DDR, and then it very quickly got to the point where, we used to travel to play DDR, and then within the course of a couple of years, we saw how the popularity rise, and then you're right. Every arcade of even a decent size has a DDR machine in it now.
Yeah. And they've been around forever, and obviously you can just do the software upgrades, the same controller. Yep. So like it's almost like future-proofed.
It's fun.
DDR, it's good time. It's a directional pad that you stomp on. I mean,
and get a little bit of a aerobic workout.
I reviewed the Disney DDR in a certain N64 guidebook.
Yeah.
And I used the pad. I got the pad.
There you go.
I put it through its paces.
Ocarina of Time. Yes. I get it. I didn't like it, but it's the first 3D Zelda. It's one of the. It took what Mario 64 introduced and then blew it wide open and was like, this is really what you can do with a 3D, a game with free movement.
7.6 million copies worldwide. Off the top of my head, the N64 only did about 25 to 30 million.
I'm honestly surprised that we talked about attach rates recently. I'm surprised that's not higher, to be honest with you.
N64 sales. So like, let's see, how many did you, while you talk about it? The only thing I would say about this, I did 33. So that's pat math. That's one. It's like 28%, 29%, something like that. That's good. That's outstanding. That's what I mean. That's what Zelda usually does, right? You're not going to have everyone buy a Zelda game, but you get a chunk.
No, I just figured it might be higher on the 64 because there was less.
Gotcha.
There was, less that was appealing.
Yeah, but that's a harder game for like little kids to get into versus Mario Kart. But I get it. The only thing I was gonna say is that so now you're not just doing like franchises. This is gonna be individual games for the Hall of Fame itself. Getting to logistics, will this come back? Like, will you do Breath of the Wild like years and years later? Like, I'm guessing that can get messy. I'd rather have like the staples start off and then. You know what I mean? It's like the Pro Wrestling Hall of Fame. You have like Ric Flair in like 2-3 times as himself. You have him with the Four Horsemen. I'm just like, think of logistics. I don't want to see a Zelda game every year. It's not my museum though. It's not my Hall of Fame.
Well, for instance, I don't think Link to the Past would get into the museum. It's a popular game,
but it didn't do anything.
But it all it did was go back to the top-down style, but prettier.
It was a super version of Legend of Zelda.
Right.
Good old Minesweeper.
Minesweeper, a game that I hated as a kid, and as I've learned how to play it, I've really enjoyed.
Oh, you never knew how to play it?
As a kid, I did, but I couldn't wrap my mind around it. And then I sat down about 5 years ago and started playing Minesweeper again. I was like, this is fun.
I never knew about the double click thing until last year. I didn't know about
What's
that.
double click?
So you hold the one button, you press the other, and it clears all the area where there can possibly be no mine. You don't have to like. It's a weird. It's like it's like a fast forward sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It does. It takes out some of the time for you. I was like, I didn't know about that. Not talking about where you click and there's nothing. There's like another. I didn't know about it because there's actually Minesweeper speed runs.
Oh yeah.
And what's interesting about that is you have to get a good run because it's randomized. You don't get all the same thing. So there's literally I did not know about that.
Ms. Pac-Man is one of the finest.
I was going to talk about Minesweeper. But okay.
Oh, sorry.
Minesweeper has been played by. How many people have played Minesweeper? That's the thing. It's like there's other preloaded games like Solitaire. In good old the pinball game.
Well, Solitaire got added.
Oh, that's right, it did.
Yeah.
Was it a finalist or was it added?
I'm pretty sure Solitaire was added.
Okay.
I'm fairly certain. And then the only other one that I want to see is I want to see Galactic Pinball get added.
That's the one.
Yeah.
That was a good game.
It is. It's fun. And I actually once went out of my way, and I don't know how many people have ever done this because no one talks about them. I pirated the other tables in that pack.
Instead of buying it?
Yeah, I ended up with the other tables in that pack. And
15-year-old Ian.
They were fun. Okay, Ms. Pac-Man, I think it's one of the best examples of an idea perfected in an iteration. They took a great basic idea and added just enough to it to add some variety and spice to it. I also think the history of Ms. Pac-Man, how it basically started as a mod, is incredibly interesting. And I mean, absolutely. If Ms. Pac-Man doesn't go in this year, that's a fucking tragedy.
Solitaire did go in. But by the way, when we say these are finalists, you still have to vote on them. You have a few weeks to vote. So it looks like
none of these are guaranteed.
There's only 32 in. So they do about 4 a year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They do four a year, like 4 or 5 a year. So like these aren't. And this is why they come back. So Ms. Pac-Man is the most popular arcade game of all time. You can say from that alone it should be in. From that alone,
yeah,
it was part of the boom of the golden age of arcade games. It was the first prominent female character in a video game. Like you said, it perfected Pac-Man and made it more colorful and more complex.
Yeah, other versions of Pac-Man are fun, but nothing is as perfect. Everything else seemed extraneous and weird. Ms. Pac-Man was a natural evolution.
Super Pac-Man, Pac Plus, Pac-Man Jr.,
Pac and Pal.
I always forget about Pac. There's always
because I don't think Pac and Pal ever came out over here.
Those never got Pac-Man right. Those games are all fundamentally
they're
flawed.
Well, they're neat and they're fun, but they're yeah.
Like Super Pac-Man has like what you get the big Pac-Man or whatever.
And you go through the doors.
Gates or like they're gimmicked. Like it got away from the simplicity. Miss Pac-Man and Pac-Man are both.
There is no gimmick in Miss Pac-Man. At the time you could say the gimmick was the moving fruit or the changing mazes, but that's just evolution of a game design.
No, changing the shape of the maze was natural progression.
Yes, exactly.
You know, making that one easier where it's like there's no way out of the top or bottom. Like that's great that they did that. All right, what's next year?
NBA Jam. NBA Jam is one of the ones that is returning, I believe, from 2 years ago. I would love to see NBA Jam get into the Hall of Fame. I think NBA Jam is important in that it was one of the first sports games that appealed to, anyone.
mass cultural phenomenon.
Yep. And it was a sports game that, unlike a lot of sports games at that time, that really tried to hammer home how realistic they were. And
digitized graphics
and digitized graphics, and also tried to hammer home the realism of the gameplay and the plays. This was one of the first sports games to realize, hey, maybe we don't need to go for that. We can go for arcade, pick up and play fun. And all of a sudden, and it's really at that point, I mean, you can say arch rivals, but NBA Jam was the first. From that point on, the whole idea of like these loose interpretations of sports games exploded.
And this also coincides with basketball blowing up and going like international.
Yeah,
93. This is right after the Dream Team.
Yep.
This is Jordan at his the first of the trilogy, the first of his 2 trilogies of titles at the cap of here. Supposedly, obviously Jordan's not in this game because of his likeness, but supposedly he got one made, and there is supposedly a version of the game with Jordan in it that's out there. I remember I mentioned, was it Trammell said that? I forget who said that at Midway. But one of them said, like, yeah, we have the board sitting around somewhere. I got to find it. That would be great. Shaq had one in his house, even after he was taken out of the game.
Yep.
He was in it for the first year, him and Barkley, then they were taken out because they had their own game licenses for the licenses. So, like, that's probably the first time you hear about, like, LeBron James brought it up last week at a press conference playing NBA Jam.
Yeah.
He said, yeah, I used to play as, I think he mentioned Seattle. And then I
used to always play as Charlotte.
I think he mentioned Charlotte. He mentioned a couple of teams. And I'm like, that's amazing because LeBron James at the time was only like, let's see, LeBron James is 37. Pat Math, he was born in, what is that, 85. He was like only 8 years old.
Right.
And he was getting on board with that. I'm not saying that was helped him discover basketball, but like doesn't hurt. That game was everywhere, NBA Jam.
Yeah.
That was the one you go to drug fair and they had that. I played my cousin at drug fair.
Yep.
They had NBA Jam and they had I think like Cruisin', or they had like Mortal Kombat. They had like 3 games, and they always NBA Jam, and you always played a full game. That, I think, was one of the first games where like you begrudgingly put in that $1. And you're like, this is worth it. This is worth it to put in a quarter per quarter of game. It's probably one of the first games I did that too.
Parappa the Rapper. I honestly, I mean, even before DDR, kind of one of the games that really introduced the rhythm game genre to the world. Also notable for the incredible art style. I think Parappa definitely deserves a place in there. You've got 2 rhythm games this year, though. And while I think Parappa the Rapper was definitely closer to the original, I feel like DDR is probably the more important one worldwide.
Yeah, cultural impact. It's going to be DDR for sure.
Resident Evil. I introduced the survival horror genre, really took 3D graphics to the next level by using the pre-rendered backgrounds, introduced, cinematic camera shots to video games,
First
suspense.
Real successful movie franchise on a video game.
True.
They did like, what, 9 of them or 8 of them, whatever the fuck.
I think they're still doing them. There's a fucking TV show coming out in June.
Yeah.
For July.
Because, that's right. They did a new movie. It's like a reboot movie a year or 2 ago. So they did that.
So that's big. I also don't know that I feel like there's too many other, I'll get to that right at the end. I feel like the picks for me are fairly obvious for 3 of them here. So I think there's a lot that aren't going to get in that will definitely be brought back. This is my big one, Rogue. I fucking love Rogue. Rogue absolutely deserves a spot in the Hall of Fame. Not just because it's a good game, but it brought procedural generation to video games. There is not an indie game. There are. There are very few indie games being made in the market today, and very few AAA games, less than those, that try to work some sort of randomization and procedural generation into a game to keep things fresh. The amount of indie games that are roguelikes or roguelites, and some of them being hugely popular. One of the most adored games last year, Hades, is an action roguelike.
So are you saying it should get in on the basis of it starting the procedurally generated thing, is that versus the game itself, or the game itself?
The game itself is very important, and obviously because everyone copied it for the next billion years.
I'm just saying, because Cabal's never going to get in, but that was the first third-person shooter game, like that. But it'll never get in. You know what I mean?
It didn't. But it wasn't also. It also wasn't really introducing anything. Procedural generation is fairly groundbreaking.
Yeah, well, I'm just saying, that was the first of the genre. That at the time that didn't exist. I'm just saying, I don't know how people are going to vote. I'm guessing. Let's see. So the fans are voting real quick between March 17th and March 24th as part of a player's choice. And then the 3 games that receive the most public votes will form one ballot and will join the other ballots submitted by members of the International Selection Advisory Committee. Now I want to be in that committee. I want to be like people that vote on the NBA MVP, like members of the media and journalists. Oh, how do I get in that committee? That's our goal. What's next?
Sid Meier's Civilization.
I mean, yes.
Fucking shoe it in.
I mean,
I have nothing else to say. Just fucking boot it across the finish line.
I'm not saying the fans are going to vote on that one, but the committee will vote on that one.
Yep.
I mean, in terms of it perfecting sort of the turn-based strategy game, like it did it, like right there. Like you say, like that was the model going forward for that. And obviously, it's a near perfect game. Even the first one's a near perfect game.
It's a great game.
There's not much.
Still fun.
When you go back to the original Civilization, you look, yeah, they've added bells and whistles and more tech trees and things like that. And more,
but a very solid foundation was
like,
introduced then, and not changed a whole lot.
But you can go. It's like Super Mario Brothers. Like that was the foundation, and every game after Super Mario Brothers is pretty much Super Mario Brothers.
Yeah,
it has the same mechanics. You know, it's just we're just expanding on it. And Words with Friends,
a ripoff of Scrabble that everyone plays. I don't like Words with Friends.
I know people that have liked it.
I love Scrabble, and I hate playing on a different fucking board.
I will say this. I don't think this is going to get in either way.
No.
I think, obviously, if you're going to do a game, you do Candy Crush. If you're going to do a mobile game, because that obviously was... Yeah, as you said, it's derivative. It also was very a fad. It was a fad.
A lot of people still play it.
But it's like Wordle, though. Everyone knows about it now, and a year from now, people are going to be playing it, but it's like everyone plays this one game. I'm not trying to be anti, smartphone game. I would not put this in the Hall of Fame.
Here are my 3 that I think are definites, with a couple with my 2 options for my maybes on 4 that I would like. So Candy Crush, I think, is a shoo-in. I think Ms. Pac-Man is a shoo-in, and I think Civilization gets in this year.
We only pick 3, not 4?
Well, no, you pick 4. Those are the 3 that I think are. Those are the ones that I think are like those are getting in. Then I would really. I don't think Rogue is getting in this year. I would love to see it get in this year.
It's not gonna probably.
I would love to see NBA Jam get in. It's the second year they've brought back NBA Jam. I think it's an important game. It's loved. I think there's plenty of time for most of these other games. I think there's plenty of time for Resident Evil. There's plenty of time for Zelda. We got the Solitaire in. As much as I like Minesweeper, I don't know that it necessarily needs to be in the Hall of Fame. Assassin's Creed, I feel like is too early, and that's like one of the only ones besides Words with Friends where I really just don't understand why it's here.
Yeah, this isn't like Major League Baseball. You have 10 years to get in the Hall of Fame,
right?
So this is the 4 I think are going to get in based upon fan versus the committee. I think you're going to see DDR. I think you're going to see Candy Crush.
Oh, DDR, yes. I'm sorry.
I think you're going to see DDR for sure. You're going to get an arcade game. You're going to get the mobile game Candy Crush. Then after that, you're going to get Civilization. And then I think you're going to end up getting either Resident Evil or Minesweeper. I would probably say Resident Evil. I think
over Ms. Pac-Man.
I think Ms. Pac-Man is going to be left out because Pac-Man's already in for now. And they're going to wait.
Okay, that's a good point.
And then NBA Jam, I think will come back for a third time to get in. But
yeah, the more I look at it, I think if I wanted to put money on it, I think it would be DDR, Candy Crush, Ms. Pac, and Civilization. But you make a good argument for Ms. Pac.
Yeah,
and I think at that point, it's not going to go to Assassin's Creed. It's going to be Ocarina of Time, or it's going to be Resident Evil.
They're basically following, which I kind of like, the NFL model of the Hall of Fame. Ian they only take a certain amount each year.
Right.
And then you can come back, but they go, who are the best this year?
Right.
And that's how they do it. So eventually you get, okay, these are still good players, but they're not. That's what I mean. They really take that seriously. That's how they're kind of doing it. And I kind of respect that. Let's get the most important ones in first, and then eventually we'll get down to the B+ ones, if that makes sense.
Sure.
So what I say Civilization, I think Resident Evil.
You said
Candy
Civ,
Crush,
Resident Evil, Candy Crush, and DDR.
Yeah. Because you already have a Zelda game, Assassin's Creed, Parappa's not important enough culturally. Miss Pac-Man, you already have Pac-Man. Minesweeper, you already have Solitaire. NBA Jam, Rogue, it'll get there eventually, but it's not, you know what I mean? And Words with Friends, you got the other one.
The only thing I could see about maybe there being an upset with Rogue is because roguelikes and roguelites really are at like the pinnacle of the fever.
Okay.
But I still don't think Rogue makes it in this year.